Hey everybody, welcome back to The Point Podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. It is January 9th. It is a Monday, and took a bit of hiatus following the last Wednesday's episode. Just was enjoying the World Junior Hockey Championships in Halifax. Plan to do more shows, but that Thursday was crazy with the gold medal game and everything. And then I came down with a cold, and my voice has been horrible. I'm on the mend, feel much better. I haven't felt that bad since early Saturday afternoon. It's just my voice has been a mess. And I hope that I sound okay. Might be a little stuffed up. I apologize for that. But we're going to battle through today, see what happens. But I'm happy to be back, happy to be live alongside all of you. It's been a whirlwind week starting 2023 in the best way possible in Halifax at the World Junior Hockey Championship, soaking that all in, then taking in NFL this weekend on the couch, enjoying Week 18 and the last regular season weekend of the NFL season, which is crazy and also really sad. And then golf is starting, though. That's the positive spin. You can find something. It's the world of sports. It never ends. It's an ecosystem of constant, it's like hamsters on wheels, constantly going. Golf is back in Hawaii. The Century Tournament of Champions, John Rahm shoots 10 under on a Sunday. Was taking in that yesterday as well, enjoying that Saturday afternoon. No college football. You get the Century in beautiful Hawaii. The only thing that would have been better if I was there and not here in this, not that cold New Brunswick, but hey, there's always better weather somewhere. It's 5 o'clock somewhere to you drinkers out there. But today's show is going to be a combo. I'm going to start with the World Juniors. I'm going to talk about the gold medal game. I'm going to give out my best players of the tournament, give my thoughts on Shane Wright, on the monster deal in the WHL yesterday that includes Zellweger heading to the Kamloops Blazers. If you haven't heard about it, wait a sec. I'll give you the deets. I will then chat about NFL, what happened yesterday, the different playoff matchups. We'll start to preview those today. We'll do it more and more as we go throughout the week. And we're going to get back on a normal routine. Monday to Friday shows, Big Monday Fridays, will be back. I will be chatting this week alongside somebody, not sure yet, about the NFL, previewing the games, talking about the betting lines. So that is 100% a locked-in thing happening this week. We're going to get back into golf. That'll be happening. Seamus will be joining me tomorrow. We will talk about a number of things, including our predictions for 2023 in the entire world of sports. We'll talk about the best players in the NHL so far this season. And we're about halfway through the NHL season. Most teams are at 40 to 41 games, so we'll talk about that. Different races and different awards, we'll kind of handicap those and get into some NBA stories. So I'll do that tomorrow with Seamus. So that's what's coming up the next couple of days. Thursday or Friday, a guest will come on. We'll talk some NFL. We'll talk about a number of different topics. So that is what's on the horizon for this week. Now, I've heard this from so many pundits, from so many different media people, bigwigs in the sports world. And it gives me so much glee and so much happiness to be able to say this, that the Halifax Moncton World Junior Hockey Championship could not have gone better. It was a rounding success. There were no complaints. It was just an event that went on perfect. It had nothing to do with prior events. It had nothing to do with the old regime at Hockey Canada. It had everything to do with the excellent product on the ice and the amazing crowd that was at the Scotiabank and Avenir arenas the past couple of weeks. From Jeff O'Neill, Mike Johnson, Gord Miller, it didn't matter. Everybody loved the Maritime experience. They couldn't stop talking about how nice Maritimers are. And I think as Maritimers, if you're listening to this and you are from, the Maritimes, I think you can take that as a compliment. I think you should take that as something that people from larger cities, people that are accustomed to a certain way of life, are coming here and love the way they're treated, love the way that it's going, and would love to come back. Mike Johnson even said at one point they should have the tournament here again next year. Now, of course, it's not going to happen. It's in Gothenburg, Sweden. But just hearing somebody say that, it gives you a ringing endorsement. And I think it gives hope that it'll be less than 20 years before the Maritimes gets another bid for a World Junior Hockey Championship, or at the very least another Memorial Cup, which I think was a big success in St. John last spring. It was one of the, scratch that, it was the coolest sporting event I've ever been to. And I went to an NFL game on Christmas Day. I've been very fortunate to go to a lot of live sporting events lately. And the drama, the skill, the play of these kids, there's something about it that is just different. That is so tantalizing that I think people that don't watch hockey get involved in this tournament and become experts, which is fine for a week, and then they fade back into the background before the NHL playoffs start. The pace, the passion, playing for the sweater, playing for the country is different than playing for the sweater. I've learned that. You see the Czech players, you see the Slovakian players, to me it's different. Obviously, the players for Canada winning back-to-back gold medals on golden goals. There's something about playing at this tournament and playing for your country in general. It just sparks a different level of competition. We will all watch the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and love them. And they'll be excellent, and it'll be captivating, and I won't miss a snap. I won't miss a beat of any of it. But this tournament brings something different to the table. It brings out different people. It brings out different emotions, and I've never heard a rink that loud. I was fortunate to be at the 2017 World Junior Hockey Championship, and I got to spend a lot of that tournament with one of my good friends, Nick Gilbert. He was nice enough to text me that night. We went, and I'll have that memory with him until the day we both die. He was at this event. We did not sit together, but I saw him every day that he was in Halifax, and we got to share another of those memories. I got to sit for every game minus the 2 quarterfinal games with my cousin Sawyer, a person that I don't know if I'm close. There's nobody that I'm closer with. We're close regardless, but being able to spend that amount of time with a person, looking at something that we both love, the game of hockey, me because I've loved it and I love breaking it down, him because he was actually good at the sport and he was drafted in the NHL, and him looking at the talent saying, I can't believe I played in this type of hockey. I can't believe I almost made the NHL. Look at how good these guys are. You remember these type of moments. You remember just things in life that where you were during certain games. The fans around you, the faces that you take in during your time. And that's what I'll remember. I'll remember Dylan Guenther's nice goal. I remember Joshua Waugh feeding him across the ice. But to me, going to these events live, it's about who you're with, the moments that you take in, and everything in between. It was really, 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 really cool that way. Because I think if we go to an NHL game, if I went to an NHL game with Sawyer, with Nick, it would be a different experience. They're both Leaf fans, and even if the Leafs won, I'd be happy for them. I wasn't rooting for Canada in this game. I didn't care if Canada won. I had no reaction to Dylan Guenther scoring that goal. I stood straight-faced looking ahead. Sawyer was so excited. It was great to see that. He actually slapped my arm, which hurt. But I loved seeing his reaction to that. Him being a fan, him being excited, being a Canadian, seeing his team win. I got to see him kind of break away from that, hockey player mantra and just be a fan from it, which was cool in and of itself. I loved the experience. And to start, I just wanted to talk about me and what it meant for me to be there. I've gone to the last 2 World Juniors in Edmonton and Halifax, and the 2 experiences could not have been different. In Edmonton, nobody was there. It was the summer. It was 30 degrees. I loved the temperature. Could do that all day, every day. But it wasn't the same. Nobody was in the building. Nobody cared about the tournament. And it felt less than. For a lot of these returnees, they got a World Junior experience. They got what it felt like for people to care, for people to wrap their arms around these players and really soak it in. For Zach Opschuk and Logan Stankoven and Brennan Hoffman, among others, returnees who won both gold medals, they got 2 gold medals, but they got 1 true World Junior experience. Halifax, Moncton, you did it right. Good on you. That's my first observation, that it's awesome to see the Maritimes kill it. Now, Metro Center, Scotiabank, I prefer the Metro Center. Could you work on getting people in the rink quicker? Yeah. Sora and I waited in line for over 45 minutes to get into the gold medal game, and we showed up almost an hour before the game. So could you open another door and get some more scanners? That could be something that definitely could be improved. Needs to be improved because we both have colds now, which is well worth it because I was at those games and I could give a shit about a cold and my crappy voice today because I was at that game. But you can always improve things. Get people in the buildings faster. Also, another observation, and I am guilty of this, but men got to figure it out when it comes to peeing. The lines at these events are nuts. I mean, is the beer just going through you and you can't handle it? It's unbelievable in an intermission that over halfway down the hall, there is a line up to the bathroom. Now, either people need to find another hobby other than what Ray from the Trailer Parks hobby is, which is drinking. Maybe find another hobby. Maybe have a peanut or just grab a piece of pizza at the game and don't drink. My God, that was staggering. I've never seen a line that long, and I've been to NHL games, and guess what? There are more people in those stadiums. There was more people at the football game. Not as big a line. What is going on? Do you got to get something looked at? I don't really like drinking anyway, but I did not drink at any game because of the fear of missing some of the game because I had to go pee. But guys, men, figure it out. What's going on here? I got a bad bladder myself, but figure it out. The gold medal game itself on the ice. I call it the Shane Wright game because he was the best player on the ice for Canada, and I thought he stepped up in a big moment. Through the first 6 games of the tournament, Shane Wright was a passenger and not a pilot. He was just there. He was just another guy, and he was a bit of a letdown. And compared to Connor Bedard, he was an ant. He was nothing. You couldn't even see him. He was in the rear view mirror. But I felt in a must-win game, in the gold medal game, the Othman, Wright, Gunther line was the best line on the team. And Shane Wright drove that bus. Started with him on the forecheck, winning battles, throwing hits, using his physicality, which is what's going to make him a good NHL player if he can translate it. He was drafted 4th overall, not because he's great at any individual thing, but because he's pretty good at everything. I think Nick Suzuki's a fair comparison I'm not sure Shane Wright's going to have the offensive production of Nick Suzuki at the next level. But I see a player in this game with traits that you look at and you're excited about. His physicality, his aggression on pucks, not giving up, being in shooting lanes. He did all of these things well. Brendan Hoffman said before the gold medal game that Shane Wright was Canada's best 200-foot player. I said it to people around me because there was such Shane Wright slander, so it gave me a little bit of satisfaction to throw that in their face and for them to pick at it, throwing some chum in the proverbial waters, if you were. And I thought he was in this game. I didn't agree with the comment at the time, but to me, he was the best player on the ice, and he did everything in his power to help Canada win. Now, for him as a whole, he's not going to be in my players of the tournament list. That's going to come out after I talk about this gold medal game. He's not on the list. He was adequate. He was fine. For him, the biggest thing he needs to work on is faceoffs. Shane Wright, I don't see him being a top-line center in the National Hockey League, and if he can't improve his faceoffs, he will not be a number 2 center. And honestly, it's hard to be a checking line center if you can't win a draw. Because checking line centers go out when you got a defensive zone faceoff, you got to play against the team's toughest opponent. You need to win some of those draws to make your life easier on your goaltender and defense pairs. So for him, over the next number of months before next season, playing in the OHL, stay after practice, work on your faceoffs because he was dominated night after night after night. Patrice Bergeron doesn't skate as well as Shane Wright. Patrice Bergeron doesn't have as good a shot as Shane Wright. But he can win faceoffs, and that's been part of his repertoire forever. Could Shane Wright morph his game and possibly be a Selke Trophy candidate? I could see that, but he needs to improve his faceoff ability. Logan Stankoven won 76% of his faceoffs in this tournament. Shane Wright only won just a little over 30% of his draws. That's a staggering difference. And Logan Stankoven is a small dude. Logan Stankoven doesn't throw a hit. Logan Stankoven plays with zero physicality in his game. So Shane Wright, figure out a better method to win these draws. You're going up against junior players in faceoffs. You're not playing against men yet. 95% of this tournament will never make the NHL and have any kind of impact in the league. So that's my main observation for him is work on the faceoffs. Because the rest of your game, I didn't hate it. He wasn't fantastic, but we know what he is as a player now. And I think Seattle needs to hope that he can be a number 2 center for that team in the future. For this year, they sent him back to the American Hockey League, which was the correct decision. He should have been there from the start of the year, as I've said many times. He's not NHL ready. I wish he could play in the American League, but these are the rules right now. It's stupid. But he can go play one more year of junior. There's rumors that he's been traded to the London Knights from the Kingston Frontenac, so he will be on a team with a chance to go to the Memorial Cup. You know, London will battle with teams like the Ottawa 67s, like the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL, Peterborough Petes. So though it could be one of 4 teams that have a legitimate chance of going there, you add a player like Shane Wright, that's a big difference. It's a big difference. Also in this game, Dylan Guenther. Dylan Guenther, who's now played 22 NHL games, and he was not sent back to junior. He is playing with the Arizona Coyotes, played last night in a 4-1 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. He had the first goal of the game on the power play, and he gets the golden goal. He's an NHL player, and he was the difference. He's got a great shot. He's lethal on the power play. And I think if you're Phoenix, Arizona, ASU, you look at this kid and you say, we got ourselves a power play gem. Can he morph his game into being anything else? I thought he was really effective on the power play. 5-on-5, I need to see more from him. You put him with some good wingers. I think he can be creative. I think he can create some opportunities. He's a better skater than I thought he was, looking at him in person. I like him. He's got an NHL caliber shot. I mean, that first goal of the game, he beats Sukanik. It's bar down, just cheddar. I mean, nobody's making that save. Like I said, NHL caliber shot. But he needs to keep working other facets of his game. He's played 22 games, so this first year of his contract is going to kick in. It's already kicked in. I would not be shocked if he's sent back to junior before the end of the year. They can. Arizona has that option. I haven't heard if his rights were traded yet. I imagine they will, because I still think teams think that there's a chance. If you could add a Dylan Guenther down the line and you're a team that could win the Memorial Cup, maybe Arizona would lend him back. I take that chance. He was a huge part of this game. Milic for Canada. From the quarterfinal on, he did not crack. He was on the biggest stage and he lived up to it. Canada's biggest question mark going into the tournament, and just everywhere you look, as a whole, Canada's pipeline for goaltending is weak. Thomas Milic had all kinds of questions, and he answered them. He did everything he could. He kept them in the game. He made big saves at key times, including in this game. And I give him full credit for the way he handled it. He did not look like he was nervous. He played in those big spots, and he was fantastic when he needed to be. This tournament can make people a career to start. He's a 19-year-old. He's been passed through 2 drafts. I think teams will give him a look just based off the success in this tournament. Doesn't mean he'll be good at any kind of level. Doesn't mean he'll go anywhere in the National Hockey League. Goaltending is a crapshoot. But I do think he's shown that he can play. He played on a big moment and played up to the competition. So Thomas Milic, if he gets an invite to camp, if he gets an entry-level contract after being a free agent, good for him, because he played well in this moment. He won that gold medal. And truly, the coolest part of the entire experience at this year's World Junior was after the semifinal against the Americans, when 11,000 people were in that building before they announced player of the game, and they just chanted Milic. In unison, everybody in that building knew who was going to win player of the game, and it was an eerie feeling. You saw him get his Tissot watch or whatever that stick that they get for being player of the game, and he was emotional. He had a smile, but kind of tears going down his face, because that'll never happen to him again. 11,000 people were basically serenading him for his performance. This isn't John Lennon. This isn't, a great band. This isn't Fleetwood Mac performing. This isn't Elton John at Dodger Stadium. This was Thomas Milic, a 19-year-old goaltender that nobody had heard of before this tournament, but now they know him. Now they're on Israel, and I think he won't have to buy a beer in Halifax for the rest of his life. If he ever wants to go back there, I think he can find a cheap hotel room. I think he can go to the Pint and get a cheap beer. This guy, what a cool moment. And even for me, the stone cold, no emotion guy, Android computer, however you want to describe me, I was like, whoa, that's pretty damn cool. That's pretty damn cool that this kid is getting that kind of a moment. And good for Thomas Milic. Connor Bedard is the story of the tournament. He was not the story in the gold medal game. I thought he was frustrated. I thought they played him very well, the Czechs. But still in the game, he made a few plays I had never seen before. That pass he made from his belly, tape to Stankoven in front of that from the corner, was truly unbelievable. I'd never seen that before. He was still all over the place. I thought he gripped his stick a little too much. But I leave this tournament and I've seen him play 7 times live now. I saw him 4 times in the summer. I saw him 3 times in this year's tournament. The kid is going to be a superstar in the NHL. The kid is unbelievable. And anybody that says, well, he did it against this team or he's too small, you're trying to find ways to put him down. You're trying to get him to fail. I don't know if he'll be better than Sidney Crosby. I don't know if that's not what the debate. Is he a great damn player? You're fucking right. His vision is second to none. Second to none. The best vision maybe since Crosby. And you could argue the best prospect since Sidney Crosby. It's better than Matthews. That's better than all these players. Really. I looked this up this morning. In 2 World Junior tournaments, Austin Matthews had 14 points in 12 games. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not bad. It's fine. And we see what Austin Matthews is at the next level. Yeah, Connor Bedard had that point total in 2 games. It's a different. I see a player offensively that can do it all. Do you want him on the ice for a defensive zone faceoff? No. But he's not supposed to be taking defensive zone faceoff. That's not going to be his skill. His vision, his world-class shot, and him as a person, as a teammate, is something I think any organization would love. This isn't a Hischier draft. This isn't a Yakupov draft where you're thinking about who's going number 1. That debate is over now. It's put to bed. It's done. But I saw a lot of scouts. I saw Steve Yzerman, Jason Spezza, Sean Horkoff, who's still scary because he's built. Chris Draper, who could kick about any man's ass. Derek Dorsett. Brad Treliving, I saw at the rink. Doug Armstrong. You see all these hockey minds going around. And a lot of them have to be thinking, how can we trade so-and-so so we can get in the Bedard sweepstakes? The Montreal Canadiens, who continue to lose games, have to be thinking, well, let's keep losing. What if we land this phenom? The San Jose Sharks, who stink. The Chicago Blackhawks winning last night in overtime, even getting a point. It hurts them. Columbus loses to Washington. They see Chicago win. It is a massively great night for them. For these teams that are middling at the bottom, you should have one goal: tank. Tank. The league doesn't want you to tank. The league doesn't want to incentivize tanking because they want games to matter. But newsflash, whether you're 14 points out or 26 points out, nobody's going to be excited when your favorite team plays that team. You know why? Because that team's pretty good, and the team your team is playing stinks. When the Toronto Maple Leafs play the Philadelphia Flyers, whoever the hell they played last night, who gives a shit about that game? Because Philly stinks and Toronto's really good. I didn't watch the game. I was watching golf and football. I know the result. But you get my point. People will tune in to watch their favorite team, whether that team is playing the best team in the league or the worst, because you're a fan. I watch the Buffalo Sabres almost every game because I watch a bad team. I follow the league. That's what I follow these leagues. That's my job. Not paid yet, but it's still my job. I love it. But if you're tanking, I remember when I was a fan of a team, I watched the Leafs when they were fucking pathetic. When they had Jonas Enroth in net, it made me sick, them losing every night. But they won the draft lottery and they got Austin Matthews. I still watch the games. People in Columbus aren't going to watch hockey whether they're great or whether they stink because it's Columbus. People aren't going to watch Arizona whether they're 10 points in the playoffs or they're out because they play in a university barn and nobody gives a shit about hockey in the desert. So to me, the thought is the league doesn't want you to tank because we want a competitive league. Well, with the hard cap system, There are going to be good teams and there are going to be bad teams. That is just the way of the world. And there will always be middling teams in the middle who are trying to find a playoff spot. Just some things don't change in life. Sports leagues aren't going to change. This is the model. This is the way it works. Haves, mediocrity, have-nots, suck face. I want to suck face because then we can get a Connor Bedard. We can get somebody that could change our franchise. Now, personally, I think the league wants Connor Bedard to go to the Chicago Blackhawks. I think if the league had a gun to their head and Gary Bettman said, name somebody, I think he'd say the Chicago Blackhawks. Because I think Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews will be off the Chicago Blackhawks next year, and that great original six franchise, which was once close to bankruptcy, will be searching for the next superstar, the next reason to get asses in seats when the team is bad. What could that be? Oh yeah, the phenom who beat the U.S. at the World Juniors, who was setting records, who had 6 points in his return to the WHL last night. Maybe we should go watch this Bedard kid. They'll go watch him. It's a big market. Also, you can build up Connor Bedard as a product, as an entity, because you can put him on ESPN. You can put him on TNT on Wednesday nights. And boy, howdy, that sounds like a good idea. And I'm no marketing genius. I'm just spitballing here. I think that'd be the best case scenario for the league. And probably possibly the kid, too. Because all the shit and all the bad people in Chicago, they're gone now. Fresh regime. Luke Richardson. New coach. Couple years of suffering before you can turn it around quick and go on another cup run. Now, would Montreal be good? Sure. But people are going to watch Montreal whether Connor Bedard is there or not. Connor Bedard doesn't swing the needle when it comes to viewers. People watch hockey in Montreal, Toronto. I just went through it. The big markets, people watch them whether they suck or whether they're great. Because the fans are more loyal, they're more crazy, however you want to describe them, they're more bought in. Arizona, Columbus, Chicago. American markets that have more options, like the NFL, like the NBA, you need a push. You need a reason to tune in. We need a reason to leave our cold-ass Chicago home on a January night to go to the United Center. Connor Bedard to the rescue. The kid's vision, the kid's shot, and the kid himself are unique talents in and of itself. He will be a superstar at the next level. Anybody who gets him, you're damn lucky. Because I haven't seen many better players live. I've seen Sidney Crosby 4 times. I've seen Ovi. I've seen Austin Matthews. Haven't seen McDavid yet. It's on the bucket list. Seen Pasta. I don't know if I've seen anybody better than this guy live. Didn't get to see Scott Niedermayer. That always bugged me, that I never got to see my guy Scott Niedermayer play live. Because God, he was a good player. Some could argue the best defenseman ever played the game. All the Bobby Orr fans are likely throwing their pitchforks and their old aluminum cans at me right now from the 1850s. But just a thought here on this spicy Monday. For Team Czechia, formerly Czech Republic, I give this team a ton of credit. I thought they would medal, and they did. They win a silver medal. They had not won a medal at the tournament since 2001. They had no quit. They were undefeated through the round robin. They beat the Swiss. They beat Sweden in overtime. They avenged 2 straight losses to Sweden in the process. And they brought Canada all the way to overtime. Their goaltending, their superb back end, and their forward group that got better as the tournament went on, and just the way they approached the game. I think the Czechs had a really older team that came back that was pissed off about the summer, and they have nothing to be ashamed of. Losing to Canada 3-on-3, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that happening. That's likely what's going to happen, right? And while I take this pause, I'm going to break this off for a second. We got some breaking news and some excellent news here on this Monday. Damar Hamlin, as you know, the Bills safety who was injured a week ago tonight, who went into cardiac arrest on the field, was basically dead, but CPR and the medical professionals who brought him back, who saved his life, has been discharged from the Cincinnati hospital and has returned to Buffalo. He watched the game in his hospital bed yesterday, FaceTiming with players. We'll get to football here in just a bit. But I wanted to bring that to your attention. What phenomenal news. That Damar Hamlin is home, he's with family, and being discharged, it sounds like he's going to be okay. He's going to have a quality of life. His brain is fine. To think it's a week later and this is the news that we're getting. Awesome. Seeing people wear the shirts for him yesterday was inspiring. The Buffalo Bills performance. But Damar Hamlin going home, being back in Buffalo. No better news that we could have gotten today. So the Bills Mafia to Damar Hamlin, way to go. A 24-year-old man, the same age as me, nearly died from playing football. But he fought, and he is leaving the hospital today. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Way to go, Damar. And way to fight. And thank you to all the medical professionals at the Cincinnati hospital who helped Damar in that fight. For the Czechs, like I just said, this is the key members of the tournament. I want to go through these. So the MVP of the tournament was Connor Bedard, obviously. Best defenseman, David Jiricek. I disagree with this. I think Jiricek had a fine tournament. Vladislav Svozil easily could have won best defenseman, in my opinion. I think he was a better defenseman than David Jiricek on his old team. Spacek even could have won the award. I loved his play. Zellweger, Janssen on Team Sweden was very good. Sandin Pellikka, likely not as good as Jiricek. But I don't think David Jiricek was the best defenseman in the tournament. Very good, not the best. Goalie was Adam Gagnon from Team Slovakia. I'm fine with that. He was phenomenal. I watched every game that he played. He kept Slovakia in a lot of games. They nearly upset Canada. Over a 50-save performance in that quarterfinal loss, but he was superb. No problem there. The media awards. Best goaltender was Thomas Suchanek from the Team Czech Republic. Forwards, Connor Bedard and Yuri Kulich from Team Czechia, who was great. Logan Cooley, Janssen, and Jiricek. So pretty similar to the rest, but the only Team Canada player that was recognized from this tournament was Connor Bedard, which honestly I think is fair because you saw a lot of guys really not step up to the plate until the very last second. But that that's the main takeaway there was just what happened. Now, I do want to get to my players of the tournament chat here. Just my standouts, the best of the World Junior Hockey Championship. And these players that really, I think, played well. I'm going to start off Nico Kukkonen from Team Finland, right winger, had 3 points at the tournament. He's a 7th rounder of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I watched him play at the previous World Junior. He's improved his skating. He's got good finish. And what I love most about him in this tournament was his physical and tenacious play. He was constantly hitting, constantly going after guys after the whistle. And I would just kind of look at him as a junkyard dog. He's got a big body, so he can look a little awkward out there, but he's hard to work. He's hard to beat against because he's so big. And he's just constantly moving. I think he'd be a bigger Jordan Tutu. Craig Button talked about how he thinks this guy can become an NHL player because he's such a hard worker. And I saw that in this tournament. I saw a guy that just will play a bottom role, will find ways to score important goals, and I think Tampa Bay has another really good draft pick on their hands here. So Nico Kukkonen, good one. Oliver Kapanen, captain of Team Finland. He had 3 points in the tournament. He's a second-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens. I think if you looked at his stats, you would say that this was a disappointing tournament for Oliver Kapanen. And I would get that argument to a certain extent. But I think if you look at Finland, they didn't score enough goals. Defensively, they were horrible. But the one way they were great in this tournament was the penalty kill. Oliver Kapanen was the force on that penalty kill. He has great reads. He wins faceoffs. He's not afraid to block shots. And that is his game. I think he's a little one-dimensional, where he's a defensive-minded player. Now, you need those guys at the next level. I do think he needs to expand his offensive game. He needs to start taking more chances. He needs to shoot the puck more. He needs to be willing to cheat a little bit defensively to create on offense, because I don't think he understood that enough in this tournament. He was on their top line. He was their first-line center, and he finishes with 3 points. He got his first goal of the tournament in the quarterfinal loss to Team Sweden. He needed to be driving the bus. He needed to be a pilot and not a passenger to bring back that idea. So for him, work on that offensive game, and playing what might be hindering him a little bit is playing overseas, playing against men. He won't be getting that opportunity, and the coach over there might be pigeonholing him into playing that certain role. When he was playing against kids his own age, you would have the opportunity to take more chances, to be more of a focal point while still having that key part of your game that's gotten you this far. To make the NHL and to be a consistent guy, you need to at least put up offensive numbers. Could this guy be a number 3 center? I absolutely think so. He went in the second round. I don't see a top 2 center iceman. I could see a third-line center, but I think you need to see more offensively from him. So continue to work on your shot, and take some chances to become more of an offensive player, because your defensive side of the game is completely locked in. That's Oliver Kapanen. Pivoting to Team Slovakia, Filip Mešár, 6 points, first-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens. Love this player. Small, he was their second pick of the first round in last year's draft. But he was one of the best players in the tournament for me. Smooth skater. Great passing, including what I loved from him, stretch passes. Long passes out of his own zone, finding wingers far ways down the ice. It's a skill that many think they have, but they can't possess. He's a defenseman in that type of sense. He is not going to panic with the puck. He will wait for an opportunity to present itself or pass it back to the point if nothing is there. Filip Mešár values the puck. He doesn't look at it just as a hand grenade, and I'll shoot the puck on a bad angle because I don't have a play. How about circle around and make something else happen? Wait for something to present itself. 6 points in 5 games, nothing to sneeze at. His small frame will be looked at as a hindrance at the next level. I'm not sure it will be. He's a late first-round pick. I did not see a guy that was afraid of contact. I did not see a guy. I saw a team in Slovakia that brought the physicality, brought the edge, brought the dirty play to Canada. I think he's going to be an NHL player because of his IQ, and he does have good offensive instincts. Brendan Gallagher made the NHL because of his edge. I think Philip Mishar can make the NHL because of his creativity in and around the net. You look at the player skate behind the net. He's got the puck. He waits until he sees a man open in front. I love the way he looks at the game, how he approaches it, and just the way he presents himself on the ice. Also from Team Slovakia, Dalibor Dvorsky, 17-year-old. He had 3 points in the tournament. It is his draft year. Now, you compare the 17-year-old to Connor Bedard, he's a nothing. But I liked parts of his game, and I think he'll get better. He's still got 2 years that he can play at this tournament. He's got an NHL caliber shot that is already there. He scored a beauty goal from the point on the power play against the United States, that 2-2 goal in that upset game. He wins draws. In this tournament, he got a guy that played a defensive-minded role later in the tournament. They morphed him in there. A physical center iceman that can take it to you. I looked at Dvorsky a little bit, and I know this guy's a winger, but my player comp is Shane Doan. Shane Doan played so heavy. He was hard to play against. He was so tough to move off the puck. I think Dvorsky can have a little bit of that in him. Doan had a good shot, and Dvorsky is going to be a first-round pick, in my opinion, maybe a high second-rounder. I like the cut of his jib. The kid can play. So look for Shane Doan to have an immediate impact here. Sorry, look for Dalibor Dvorsky to have a high. Shane Doan's already had an impact. He's already had a great career. Dalibor Dvorsky, absolutely. He needs to improve his skating, if anything, for him. He needs to work on his skating, go to some power skating clinics. That's a part of his game that could improve. That foot speed element will hurt him at the next level. But to me, he was a standout in this tournament. As a 17-year-old, the way he played, I like it. Another 17-year-old, Team Sweden, Axel Sandin Pellikka, was number 4 for Sweden, and in my opinion, their best defenseman at 17. It is his draft year. Offensively, you might not have seen a whole lot from Sandin Pellikka in this tournament. He played tentative, but he played his role effectively. Best thing about him, he is not afraid to use his body to close off forwards. You can still do this. Player's got a puck. He's moving up the wall. He's even moving in the middle of the ice. Sandin Pellikka will gap up and take the puck away, poke it away, engage physically, and stop your momentum and just stop it in the tracks. I love that part about him, that he's not afraid at his age to go up against 19-year-olds and engage physically. The main thing, he separates guys from pucks. He makes smart plays in his own zone. Hockey IQ. When you're not a Connor Bedard, I mean, it's awesome for him because he's got hockey IQ and skill out of this world. But when you don't have that type of skill, you need a brain. Sandin Pellikka absolutely does. He's got that brain. He's got the nose for the game. Love that. Also an excellent skater. Excellent skater. He can move up down the ice with ease. Again, I think he'll be put into bigger roles in these. He can play in 2 more World Juniors, which he probably will because he's a European. He will be put into big. He'll be put on the power play. He was playing penalty kill. He's on the second power play unit here. And quite frankly, he didn't have a whole lot to work with. Fabian Lysell, one of the highly touted players for Sweden, had a brutal tournament. He was ejected the bronze medal game. He's going back to Providence, losing all the momentum that he had. I like Sandin Pellikka. I think the kid can play. Team Czechia, Stanislav Svozil, 8 points, 3rd-round pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This guy does not have the greatest skating ability. He could work on it. Absolutely. But I think he's going to be an NHLer. I believe in him. And part of that is because he's got great offensive instincts. And quite frankly, I think the coaching, it got them to the gold medal game. I think they could have won if they stopped putting David Jiricek and Tiachuk on the ice against Team Canada's number one line. Svozil and Spacek were their best defense pair in this tournament, point blank, and the period. Spacek's also on my list. 6 points, 5th rounder, Minnesota. Love the kid. Love him. He is smart. He skates beautifully. He's got a great shot. He's not afraid to try things. For Svozil, he's not afraid to jump into the play, move down the wing. He's got a great eye for finding guys open. He plays with Connor Bedard for the Regina Pats. Could he improve his skating? Absolutely. But there are defensemen that just don't skate that well. There are players that don't skate that well, and they make it work. And he can improve it. He can, absolutely. He's only 19 years old. But I like Svozil. To me, he will be an NHLer at some point in his career. Spacek as well. I love that Spacek loves to jump into the play, and he seems to read it and have the right read on when to do it at seemingly every point. These two defensemen stood out to me more than Jiricek, who's a point per game in the American League this year. That tells you how good this Czechia defense was. Jimmy Snuggerud, Team USA. 13 points, 1st rounder, St. Louis Blues. You watch this guy and you look at his skating, another guy that's skating that doesn't jump off the page, and you're like, how is this guy going to make it anywhere? Well, he finds a way. He puts himself in good position. He can finish very, very well, or in and around the net. He's got a good shot. And, he's also a good passer. He had a lot of assists in this tournament. You're playing college hockey. He comes in this tournament, was on the top line, and he was worth being a part of the top line because he was their most important player, minus Logan Cooley. I like him. Another guy for me, Jack Pert, defenseman, Team USA, only had 3 points as a 2nd rounder of the Minnesota Wild. I think this guy's going to be a defensive defenseman. But part of him, why I like Jack Pert and also love Kevin Chorsinski on Team Canada, is their skating. Their skating can translate to the next level, and you need just really good defensemen. Not everybody can put up massive points. I know that's foreign now, and teams don't want to hear it for some reason. But Jacob Slavin's still really good, and there's a reason why Carolina seemingly wins every night. Because they have two of the best just pure defensemen in the NHL with Jacob Slavin and with Brett Pesce. To me, Pert will put up points, but I'm not sure he'll do it all the time. I don't think it'll be the focus of his game. He'll just be he could be Jared Spurgeon. Jared Spurgeon doesn't put up a whole lot of points, and funny enough, he's drafted to Minnesota. Doesn't have the frame of Jared Spurgeon, but he skates extremely, extremely well. And I think he's a smart player. He's got good reads. He knows when to fall back when somebody's taking an opportunity. He was playing the tournament with Jack Hughes. They're a great defense pair. I also have on here, just obvious, Connor Bedard, unbelievable. Logan Cooley had a fantastic tournament. Chaz Luchas, who had a hat trick for Team USA in the bronze medal game. Those are just a few other guys that obviously had great tournaments. But I just wanted to bring up some players, just notes I took that I really enjoyed their tournament, the way they played, and their prospects moving forward. Before we pivot and finish up the World Junior talk, because I could go on about this forever, couple guys that I felt had good tournaments that maybe you wouldn't have heard of much in the media. I'm going to start with Luke Hughes. To me, Luke, I read on Twitter all the time, including after the semifinal game against Canada, Luke Hughes stinks. Luke Hughes is having a bad tournament. I just got to say it. I would say get a new TV. I watched the guy live, and boy, is he smooth. I watched him this summer. I watched him now, and he's still really good. He had 4 goals in the tournament. He was lodging over 24 and a half minutes a game. He made plays that very few players can. He does backhand saucer passes just seemingly out of nowhere, just with relative ease to players. He skates beautifully. Luke Hughes had a great tournament. Now, was it frustrating that he didn't win? And I heard that the way he acted after the Canada loss, okay, whatever. Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. People don't like losing. This thought of, well, you got to lose the right way. Okay, whatever. I feel that's more of a mother's thing where you got to lose with grace and you got to show whatever. I don't buy into that crap. If you're mad after you lose, I'm not going to look less on you. Do you get respect in the handshake line? Is that what you want as a parent? As people watching the game, you want to have respect in that handshake line. You want to take that Tissot watch and have a whole lot of pride that you got it, whatever the fuck it's worth. Who cares? And that stick that somebody painted, which I'm sure is lovely. I don't care if somebody loses. Like I said, people that enjoy, people that just, oh, it was okay, I took it on the chin. That's a loser. It's a loser's race. That's a loser's mentality. No. I want to see somebody pissed off. That's what Luke Hughes was. He was mad that he lost to Canada. I see a competitor. I see a guy that's going to attack his last couple of months here at Michigan. And the way things are going in New Jersey, I think they could look at him as a potential guy to come into their back end when the season's over. He might leave school after 2 years and say, you know what, I'm going to go join my brother, who's got 26 goals on the season in the National Hockey League, and see if we can go to take the Devils on a little Stanley Cup run, maybe. At least win a round. I could see that happening in March. After a really good Michigan team maybe gets to the Frozen Four, maybe gets bounced out early like they did last year. Teams looking at the deadline might be looking at things saying, you know what, we could get Luke Hughes in 2 months. Why make a big trade when we could get just somebody just like that? Toronto Maple Leafs are thinking this with the likes of Matthew Nyes. Could Matthew Nyes be a winger for us? Do we really need to trade for a big name when we have Matthew Nyes coming from the University of Minnesota? Is he ready to play that role? That's the questions that are being asked. But Luke Hughes, to me, had a great tournament. The thought that he stunk or he didn't or he's not a good player or he had a bad tournament because he didn't accept the watch good enough and he didn't look, whatever. That's a parent thing. If his mother wants to scold him for not smiling after he gets the Tissot watch, then that's on her. That's on her as a parent to talk to her 19-year-old kid. I doubt he'll listen, but that's on her to do it. Because that's how she wants him to approach losing. Lose with grace. Well, not everybody's going to lose with grace. Not everybody's just going to accept it. And I'm fine with that. Because it's more interesting, and I like to see a competitor, not just somebody that accepts failure. And the other person for me that I felt got a tough rap early in the start of the World Juniors, but I think leaves the tournament with a positive outlook, is Adam Fantilli. Fantilli is the presumed second overall pick in this year's draft. But comparing him to Connor Bedard, it's crazy. You're like, whoa, how are these two even in the same category? To me, Fantilli had a tough start to the tournament, and believing it, you have a much better taste in your mouth about it if you're an NHL scout. And the reason I say that is because you can mold Fantilli to play any position that you want him to. He can be a first-line player that scores goals. He can be a fourth-liner, and he did it all in this tournament. He did it all. He was asked to do this. He did that. He was a physical player in the semifinal and in the gold medal game. He changed the game in the semifinal when he laid a huge hit in the corner. It was the TSN turning point, if you will, not the disallowed goal like they talked about the next morning, which was wrong. Fantilli hits people. He drives to the net. Yes, his defensive responsibilities aren't great yet, just like Bedard's aren't. But I saw a player that's going to be a physical winger at the next level and going to be tough to play against with a world-class release. He can play anywhere you want him to play. I like that about him. And he also might be back at the World Junior next year because not many players make the NHL at 18, at 19. He might be the captain of the World Junior team next year, have another opportunity to come in and have his tournament moment. Connor Bedard won't be at this tournament next year. He'll be playing in the National Hockey League. Maybe Fantilli will too, but he's currently attending the University of Michigan. And he might want to stay at Michigan for a second year. And if he stays for a second year, then it's a guarantee he'll be playing at this tournament again next year. I think he will be. But if I'm a scout, I'm leaving this tournament and I'm excited about the way he played. I'm excited about the transformation I saw. He didn't pout. He went through it. He was a team guy, and his play got better when his role diminished. Kudos to him. Kudos to the tournament because it was phenomenal. Gothenburg, Sweden, December 26, 2023. See you then. Probably won't be there, but I'll see you then on TV. Although I would love to go. Pivoting to the NFL. The NFL regular season has come and gone, ladies and gentlemen. It's over. Your favorite team is either in or outside the playoffs, and you're looking towards your future. If you're the Houston Texans, you had quite a day yesterday. If you lose the game, you lock up the number one seed. You lock up the number one pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Instead, Davis Mills is one of the best games of his season. And Lovie Smith decides to go for 2 points with 50 seconds left. The Houston Texans convert it and beat the Colts for their third win of the season. Now, with that win, the Bears lost yesterday. They also have 3 wins, but the Texans have a tie, meaning the Bears have a worse record, and the Bears have now leapfrogged the Texans for the first overall pick in the NFL Draft. The Chicago Bears are on the clock. Unlikely to take Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, the Bears now have options. Whether they want to make a pick, whether they want to trade down and get more assets. The options are there, and we will talk about the NFL Draft for months after this NFL season. But let's just stay on task for a second. Because after that game, before we can even get into January 9th, which is today, the Houston Texans, Nick Caserio, the ownership group, fired Lovie Smith after one season, just like they fired David Culley after one season. This is apropos because Lovie Smith says, fuck you to the Texans by screwing them out of that first overall pick. And, I think he had 2 years on his deal, so they have to pay him not to work next year. Good for Lovie Smith, and good on the Texans for doing it the wrong way. Also today, there was another firing. The Arizona Cardinals have fired Cliff Kingsbury in a surprising but yet not so surprising move. Kingsbury had a dreadful season with the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, injury-plagued, including a torn ACL. AJ Green missing 12 games. DeAndre Hopkins being suspended for the first 8. And just dreadful coaching all around from Cliff Kingsbury. Now, the status of Kyler Murray starting next season is very much up in the air. J.J. Watt is retired. His career is over after having 2 sacks in his career finale yesterday. Budda Baker's under contract. A.J. Green is seemingly going to retire. DeAndre Hopkins is not what he once was. Zach Ertz is coming off an ACL injury. This is an old team with not much talent, and you don't have a GM anymore either because Steve Keim has been relieved of his duties because he's suffering from a alcohol addiction. So it is complete turmoil in Arizona. Mass changes are coming. Well, for Cliff Kingsbury, he's got a contract with the Cardinals through 2027. That is 5 more years that the Cardinals have to pay him. 5 years you have to pay a coach to not coach. Oh, why you give an extension to a coach that has not won a division title, has not won a playoff game, has not gotten his quarterback to a Pro Bowl? Why do you do that when you don't have to do it because he still had time left on his contract? Why do you do it? Because you're a dumb organization. Because you're a dumb organization, and now you're looking around saying, we got no talent. We got no quarterback because he's injured, and who knows when he's coming back. We got no real defense because our best defensive player this year just retired. We got no GM. We got no coach. What do we got in Arizona? We got the Arizona State hockey team. The Phoenix Suns are 8th in the West. It's complete chaos in the desert. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think will get a head coaching job in the NFL. Maybe he'll get a job working for another team and they'll take up some of that salary. But Cliff was a shitty coach, but he was smart enough to get another 5-year extension. So good on him for getting that money. For Arizona, your next head coach is going to have to be enamored with Kyler Murray. He's going to have to want to coach Kyler Murray because you're stuck with him too because you gave him a long-term extension even though, you put in the clause of the contract that you wanted him to study more because he plays too much Call of Duty. Boy, this organization sounds sound and just makes great decisions, right? Okay. Does Jim Harbaugh like Kyler Murray tape? We don't know. Does Sean Payton love Kyler Murray tape? Well, we do know Sean Payton is interviewing for the Denver Broncos job this week, as is Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if either of these guys like Kyler Murray. But the next coach is going to have to buy in and really like him as a quarterback because that's who it's going to be. It's not going to be David Blau. It's not going to be Trace McSorley, Colt McCoy, quarterback X. You have to work with Kyler Murray and build an offense that has some success. I think Sean Payton, it's an interesting thing for him. So I'm going to talk more about this through the week. But there are a lot of teams that have job openings. I still think we could get a firing or two. I'm looking at Washington. They won their finale yesterday, but the ownership's up in the air with Danny Snyder, old Danny boy. Does he fire another coach before he leaves? Does he want to fire a black coach while he has so many other things that he's done incorrectly? Washington's interesting. The Cowboys lose their first playoff game. Does Mike McCarthy survive it? I'm not so sure. Seemed like a lock. I'm not locking that down anymore. I'll tell you that. Teams that miss the playoffs. I think Robert Saleh will likely be back with the Jets. That would surprise me. Sean McVay. Sean McVay could leave coaching altogether. That may not be a firing, but he might leave the coaching profession. To me, the Rams' job, even though they don't have any picks, would be more intriguing, more appealing than the Cardinal job. Because I'd rather coach Matthew Stafford or potentially Baker Mayfield coming as a backup than Kyler Murray, quite frankly. And that lack of talent you have in Arizona and the lack of resources. So lots to be decided the coaching front. But those are just two firings. The Houston job is open. And also the Arizona Cardinals job is open. If anything else happens, we'll talk about it this week. and I also go through different candidates I see around the league, and who I think would be good hires for each team. We'll do that little exercise this week. But to the games this weekend itself. Started Saturday with Vegas hosting the Chiefs. Chiefs won the game to nobody's surprise. Jerick McKinnon got his 9th receiving touchdown. Patrick Mahomes had a solid game. He played 3 quarters. For Kansas City, they get the bye. They get the number 1 seed. They may have to play a neutral site game in the AFC Championship game depending on the results of the Bills this postseason, but they are putting themselves in the best position to go on a deep run. When I look at this Chiefs offense, it's been superb. Tyreek Hill left, yet the Chiefs offense is out of this world. Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, they just find really good players. And one in the playoffs that could be an X factor for me is Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney was a X factor, was an awesome football player at the University of Florida when he was a Gator. He was all over the field. He made big catches, and he paired with Kyle Pitts alongside Kyle Trask to have one of the best offenses in the Southeastern Conference. But throughout his NFL career, he's been injured. Played a year and a half with the New York Giants and was never on the field, so they traded him to Kansas City. Since coming to Kansas City, he's got 3 touchdowns. He's used in spread options. He's used in the passing game, and he's just a dynamic weapon. I think he could be as well, because you have Travis Kelce, who Patrick trusts more than anybody. Jerick McKinnon is a backup third-string running back who's become just your red zone threat who can catch anything out of the backfield and take it to the house. Juju Smith-Schuster had over 900 yards receiving this season. He had 16 yards per catch, which is the most in his NFL career. Finally gets away from Big Ben. He has some big plays put on his name. Valdez-Scantling was solid. I don't have questions about this Chiefs offense. The defense I always do because they give up big plays. Frank Clark was injured in this game. But to me, their 2 most important defensive players are Juan Thornhill in the secondary and Chris Jones. Honey Badger is no longer with the team. He's in New Orleans. They missed the playoffs. There's another team that could lose a head coach, and Dennis Allen. Juan had an interception on Jarrett Stidham. He's constantly moving around the field. He can help L'Jarius Sneed. He can help their other corners. He is kind of the leader of that back end, and to me, their most important player back there. The other guy is Chris Jones, who just mashes up offensive lines, who gets sacks, who makes it incredibly difficult. He is the Cam Hayward of the Kansas City Chiefs. They're very similar. For the season, I predicted Kansas City and San Francisco would meet in the Super Bowl. I still feel confident about that prediction. Kansas City's defense playing better at the right time. Patrick Mahomes is healthy. That entire offense is healthy, and they're going to get a week off. I think they're playing better than the Bills. I think they're playing better than other great teams in the AFC right now. Plus, they got the best player in football, and that's Patrick Mahomes. So Chiefs lock up the 1 seed. The nightcap game Saturday was the Tennessee Titans visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And with this result, I can say this definitively. The Jacksonville Jaguars were originally the frisky Jags. They were a team that you looked at and you said, well, they got Trevor Lawrence, the blonde-haired beauty. They got Evan Ingram, who's better than he ever was in New York. Zay Jones, a good offensive line. Travis Etienne, who was returning from a torn ACL. This team's pretty good. They also got a head coach that won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. And despite being 2-7, the Jacksonville Jaguars clawed their way back, beating Tennessee. The AFC South completely crumbling around them. Tennessee losing Ryan Tannehill. Tennessee firing a general manager. Tennessee doing all this, and then they came to the game Saturday with Jacksonville with the opportunity to win the game. You're in the playoffs. you win your division and secure a home playoff game in Duval Nation. Well, Trevor Lawrence played horrible on Saturday, quite frankly. He missed throws. He fumbled the ball. Some of the play calling was sketchy for me from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He played horrible. Horrible. But Jacksonville has got a defense. Despite Joshua Dobbs playing a very good game, despite being a third-string quarterback, and despite only being on the roster of Tennessee for 21 days, because he was the practice squad quarterback for Cleveland the second string for Cleveland half the year until Deshaun Watson came back, and then he was waived. The player of the game, the guy who gets the game ball for the Jags for me, this is before, I have this written down in my notes, prior to his big play, is Josh Allen. Yes, there's another Josh Allen in the NFL. He's number 41 for the Jags, and he's the leader of that defense. He gets sacks. He gets tackles for losses. He makes big plays. With Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, their first overall pick last April, they are a force. They are a load to deal with. And the defense kept them in the game, kept getting stops. And Trevor Lawrence would miss plays. They gain nothing. They put themselves in an opportunity. They have to settle for a field goal, or they'd fumble, or something bad would happen. But 2:51, it's third down. Tennessee's got the ball. They know if they can get a first down here, they have a very good chance of winning the football game. And they put the ball in Joshua Dobbs' hands. There's a corner blitz. Rayshawn Jenkins comes around the edge. He hits Josh Dobbs. Ball comes out. It's recovered by Josh Allen. He takes it to the house. 20-16 Jaguars. And Tennessee could not score any more points. Mike Vrabel, the Mick Cronin of the NFL, who is impossible to kill, was slayed. A team that had no business being in the playoffs did not make it. But Jacksonville did it. Doug Peterson's first year to make the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, really, because he had Urban Meyer as head coach in his first year, makes the playoffs. They win 20-16. And I'm happy for Duval County. I'm happy for the Jags. And they've officially morphed from the frisky Jags into the horny Jags. The Jags are hungry. They are horny. They are ready for the playoffs. The Cats are hungry. Who's their opponent? We'll get to that in a second. And, of course, more throughout the week. Stick to AFC first. There were three really important games. Buffalo, New England, Jets, Miami, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. This is how it worked. If New England beat Buffalo, they're in the playoffs. They're the 7th seed. If New England loses and the Miami Dolphins win, they're in the playoffs. If New England loses and Miami lost, Steelers win, they are the 7th seed. They're in. So how did this all play out? Well, let's start with the Steelers. Steelers do what they do. They go and play the Cleveland Browns. They play Deshaun Watson, who just looks absolutely pathetic. Kenny Pickett, who's a rookie who makes no money. Colin Cowherd pointed this out on Twitter yesterday. A good point by him. That rookie deal, he makes about $2 million. Deshaun Watson makes 40, whatever it is. And Kenny Pickett looked as good or better than Deshaun Watson yesterday. And Deshaun Watson has looked horrible since he's come back from suspension. Good on him. He can go fuck himself. But Kenny Pickett has gotten better every week. In his last 6 games, he had 1 interception. And the Steelers win 28-14. Najee Harris had a big day on the ground. Kenny Pickett threw a touchdown pass to Zach Gentry and George Pickens. And with the win, the Steelers improved to 9-8. And Mike Tomlin's coached the Steelers for over 15 years. I believe it was his 16th season. And with that win, he continues his streak of being over 500. He has never had a losing season. Mike Tomlin's my favorite coach in the NFL. He's coached some great players, but he's also just a guy that knows how to lead men. He had a team that was not as talented, that was also 2-7, and he willed that team back to the promised land. I wrote them off, and if different things didn't happen, they would have made the playoffs yesterday. Quite frankly, I think they're the best team of the three that played yesterday. But credit to George Pickens, who got better throughout the year. Credit to Kenny Pickett. Credit to Deontay Johnson, who never caught a touchdown pass despite having 1,000 yards receiving and never once complained. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, who was injured but still came back and made the Pro Bowl. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who led the league in interceptions again. This team is better off going into next season because they got a quarterback. They got some good weapons. They got rid of the cancer in the room and Chase Claypool. Hopefully Cam Hayward will come back. Spoiler alert, they didn't make the playoffs, but I think this Steelers team is on the up and up, and they have a promising future. Because they got Mike Tomlin, and I'll never count him out. Go to Buffalo, New England for a second. There was a play to start the game, and there was a player in the game yesterday that just was phenomenal. You heard the national anthem. You saw them wearing shirts for Damar Hamlin. And to start the game, Nyheim Hines, who was traded from the Indianapolis Colts at the trade deadline, has a kickoff return, 96 yards for the score to begin the game. An emotional moment, an electric moment at the Bills Stadium. Before you know it, it's 7-0. But in this game, Mac Jones had one of his best games of his season. He didn't have tight windows. He made the throws that he had to. And he had 2 touchdowns in the first half. And it was 14-14 at half. Big part of that was because Josh Allen threw a red zone interception with 14 seconds remaining. But much to that avail, and just completely chaotic fashion, New England has a great drive to start the second half. They're running it down their throat. But in the red zone, Tre'Davious White makes an incredible play, intercepts Mac Jones. But then on the next play, Devin Singletary fumbles. New England gets the ball back. It seems like they got all the momentum. Devin McCourty has an interception and a fumble recovery in the game. Jonathan Jones with the punch out. But instead of this being the sign, New England gets a field goal. And on the kickoff, Nyheim Hines takes it 101 yards. Another kickoff return for a touchdown. 2 in the game. Hines had over 200 in all-purpose yards. Over 195 of them on kickoff returns. And just to put this all into perspective, there were 4 kickoff return for touchdowns the entire NFL season before yesterday. Nyheim Hines had 2 in one game. They did this for Damar. They also, John Brown, who's recently signed off the practice squad, had a 40-yard touchdown. Stephon Diggs brought another 40-yard touchdown later in the game. Pat's secondary let them down. Mac Jones threw 3 interceptions in the second half, and New England loses. Their season of terrible play calling, their season of brutal coaching by Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia and everybody else over there that they were so arrogant they think they could just get through it with nobody coaching. They lose. Patriots, done. So that left the Jets-Miami game, which was so hard to watch because it was like watching just shit all over your TV. You got Joe Flacco against Skylar Thompson. For the Dolphins, they won the game yesterday because they finally ran the football. They had a season high in rush attempts, over 30, first time all year. They averaged 22 a game. Ugh. Rush yards plus attempts. Mostert was fantastic. The offensive line blocked well in front of him. And Jason Sanders hit the game-winning field goal with seconds remaining. Dolphins end up getting a safety on the lateral try by the Jets. They win at 11-6. The Dolphins are going to the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. Now, the bitter irony in this, 6 years ago when the Dolphins made the playoffs, Ryan Tannehill was injured. Matt Moore, the backup quarterback, made that start against Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost by over 20 points. I do not see a situation where Tua Tagovailoa is going to be cleared to play in this game. He's had at least 3 concussions this year that we know of. He was not active yesterday. He is not, to my knowledge, he has not practiced since suffering that concussion against the Green Bay Packers on Christmas Day. So now the debate for Mike McDaniel will be, do you go with Skylar Thompson, who won the game yesterday to get you into the playoffs, the 7th-round rookie out of K-State, or do you go with veteran Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, who might be available following his finger injury? I don't know if there's much of a difference. But for the Dolphins, they had to make the playoffs, in my opinion. Because of their season, because of the expectations going in, because they were 8-3 at one point, and you lost 5 in a row going to yesterday's game, you had to make the playoffs. Whether you get blown out in the wild card round or not, you needed some positivity. You needed something after trading for Tyreek Hill, the season he had, the season Jalen Waddle had. You needed something positive to come from it. Trading for Bradley Chubb. We'll be curious all week, but I can't see a situation where Tua is going to be cleared to play in this game. I think the Dolphins are on high alert. I think the league is looking at them because of their practices handling concussions lately, which has been just awful. And I would say reckless. But the AFC playoff matchups are as followed. The number 2 seed is the Buffalo Bills. They will host the Miami Dolphins on Sunday afternoon. Third matchup of the season, Dolphins won in Miami. Bills won 4 weeks ago against the Miami Dolphins. In Buffalo, Tua was the starter. Again, this 2-7 matchup, not that interesting. 3-6 rematch this weekend's game. Bengals-Ravens. Ravens, it's reported that Lamar Jackson should be back for this game. He has not practiced in a month and a half. Ravens are banged up. They're falling apart. They rested all their starters yesterday, Mark Andrews and Marcus Peters, number of different players. Bengals are just revving up. They didn't play great yesterday, but they won the game. But a division game nonetheless, just like the Bills and Dolphins. Third matchup of the season between these two. And the most intriguing game for me of these 3 AFC wildcard games, Jacksonville Jaguars will host the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have won 5 straight to end the season. The most curious case yesterday was the Chargers knew their playoff position. They played after the Ravens game, so they knew that the Ravens could not pass them for the 4 spot. For the 5 seed. And yet Justin Herbert played nearly the entire game. Mike Williams was injured in the game late in the third quarter. Brandon Staley, do you want to lose this game and get fired? Because I know the Chargers brass want to fire you so they can hire Sean Payton. They, of course, want to win this game on the road and they want to go on a run. But secretly, they really want to hire Sean Payton to work with Justin Herbert. Quietly, they want the Jags, the horny Jags, to find a way to win this game. They really do, because they're tired of your antics. They're tired of your 4th down crap. They're tired of Brandon Staley and his nerd logic. Because yesterday made no sense to play those starters that late into the game. Justin Herbert's been injured all year. Mike Williams has missed over half of your season. Keenan Allen's missed half of your season. But no one's played them the whole game. Why? You have Chase Daniel for a reason. Put Chase Daniel on the field. Justin Herbert should have been inactive. But he played nearly every snap of that football game. Lunacy, idiocy, however you want to put it, made no sense to me. The decision by Brandon Staley. The dude wants to get fired. That's my only logic right now, is that he just doesn't want to coach this team anymore. I don't know. But Jags-Chargers is the most intriguing game for me of the AFC wildcard games. To the NFC. There was a couple important games, but they were really centered around the Philadelphia Eagles. And it started with, if the Eagles win the game, they're the number one seed. So the Cowboys game had importance because they could still win the NFCs. But again, if the Eagles win, then it's not so important. The Eagles beat the Giants easily, even though their offense was lethargic. Hurts was not accurate. They had no urgency. They didn't play like a well-oiled machine. But despite all of that, the number one seed, because the Giants rested everybody. They knew they were going to be the sixth seed. Saquon Barkley didn't play. Daniel Jones didn't play. They have no star wide receivers, but none of them played. They sat out Leonard Williams. They sat out their key defensive guys. So it was Davis Webb and a bunch of guys out there for the Giants. And the Eagles ended up winning the game. Eagles win the game. They're the number one seed. They need another week so Lane Johnson can come back healthy, so Jalen Hurts can get a little more healthy as well. But they're a great start to the year. It pays off. They get a bye. We'll see what happens and what kind of opponent they get in the divisional round. That made the Dallas game irrelevant because Dallas was going to be locked into that fifth seed. You knew they're going to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Dak Prescott played almost every snap of this game, and he played maybe the worst game of his career. He was awful. I want to bring up his stat line for you because there's games, and you can have some conjecture with all of this. But this was something to behold, Dak's game yesterday. So Dak Prescott, and by the way, the Cowboys lost 26-6 to Sam Howell. Prescott went 14 for 37, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So, doing that math, he completed 37% of his passes, which is horrible. He did nothing well yesterday. He played an awful game, and this offense is going in with no confidence to play Tom Brady next Monday night and the first Monday Night Football game in playoff history. Sam Howell went 11-19, 169, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also ran for a touchdown. He was better than Dak yesterday. And yes, the Cowboys did need the game, but if you don't need the game, then why start Dak? Why lose all this confidence? He can't complete a pass to anybody but CeeDee Lamb seemingly right now. He had Zeke Elliott wide open on a wheel route, and he missed him by 5 yards, and it was not even behind him. It wasn't in front of him. It was just gone. It was to the sideline. It made no sense, the throw. Nevertheless, they lose 26-6. Their defense isn't as great as it once was. Cowboys are vulnerable going into this Bucs game. Tom Brady's smiling in Tampa because he doesn't have to travel. He doesn't have to do anything. And he gets an extra day to prepare because it's on Monday night. Oy vey. Another important game was Seahawks-Rams. Rams fought their way. They kept Geno to a low roar. But Baker Mayfield throws an interception in overtime after Jason Myers missed a potential game-winning kick in regulation. He makes the kick in overtime. Seattle wins. Now, Seattle needed to win, plus they needed help to make the playoffs. They needed to win, plus they needed Green Bay to lose on Sunday Night Football. And that brings us to this game. Green Bay, Detroit, at Lambeau Field. Aaron Rodgers owns the NFC North. He has for years. And that ran out last night. The Detroit Lions, who never play primetime because they never should play primetime because they stunk for my whole lifetime, won a game last night. Went into Lambeau and played spoiler. They ruined it for the Green Bay Packers. Jared Goff, Jamal Williams, Jamison Williams, and my guy, Aiden Hutchinson, who might win Defensive Rookie of the Year just because of his game last night with 2.5 sacks, won them that game. Aaron Rodgers threw a late interception, and that offense was lethargic AF. He only threw for 205. A.J. Dillon dropped 3 passes. I think Aaron Rodgers ready to kill him. And Jamal Williams, who was cut by Green Bay, who then went to Detroit, who had over 15 rushing touchdowns this year, including 2 last night, was the nail in that coffin. And Detroit, if they would have won one more game, would have made the playoffs. But for them, they get to play spoiler. They get to gain momentum going into next year, having a winning season under Dan Campbell. Jamal Williams asked his old teammate for his jersey that night. And Aaron Rodgers said, no, I'm going to hold on to this one. Which signaled everybody, well, maybe this is Aaron's last game. Maybe this is Aaron's last hurrah. This is Aaron's last dance in Green Bay. Losing to Detroit might be the straw that broke the camel's back, if you were. It might be the most embarrassing thing to lose to the team that has been maybe better than the Bears, but that's debatable. Over the course of Aaron's career, he's owned them all. He's owned the Vikings. So, Green Bay looks at it. Matt LaFleur has his first season where he doesn't have a winning season. He doesn't make the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is not going to win the MVP. He's not even going to be in consideration. He doesn't make the playoffs. He's 38 years old. What does he do? We'll hear rumors of retirement. We'll hear rumors he's coming back because he's Aaron Rodgers. He might go on an ayahuasca retreat and let Sunshine Moon decide what he's going to do. He's a different cat. He's had a great career. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer regardless. Despite the antics, despite the stuff with his family, which I'm on his side because I'll never take the side of somebody. It was a brother who was on The Bachelor or Bachelorette, whatever the fuck show it is. Crap TV. But credit to the Seattle Seahawks, who traded Russell Wilson and then were laughed at for keeping Geno Smith. Having Geno Smith as your starting quarterback. Saying, this is what you're not even going to try to upgrade your position. You're going to have one of the top picks in the draft. And now, look at them. They make the playoffs. You might think, well, they'll lose to the 49ers, one and done. No, folks. They're going to make the playoffs, see what happens. And they have Denver's pick. They have the Denver Broncos first-round pick. And that pick, let me tell you right now, these picks are locked in. They have the 5th pick in the draft. So they potentially could trade up with a team like Chicago who doesn't need a quarterback. Maybe they trade with Arizona. Arizona likely won't draft a quarterback at the 3rd pick in the draft. Denver has had the 5th pick in the draft. It is now Seattle's. Seattle gets an opportunity to go on a Super Bowl run, and at the same time, they get the 5th best talent in the 2023 NFL draft. How's that for a season? How's that, Pete Carroll? Credit to the Detroit, too, because they got the Rams pick, and the Rams have the 6th pick in the draft. So Detroit, 9-8 season, yes, just missed out in the playoffs, but you get to improve your team right away. So good for them. Just a crazy turn of events. I don't know my thought on Aaron Rodgers yet. I thought he didn't play well when I saw him in person. He certainly didn't play well last night, and he had a really poor season. I like Christian Watson. I don't think his weapons are all that bad. Aaron Jones had the 2nd most fumbles in the NFL this season. A.J. Dillon can't catch. This Green Bay team should have been a hell of a lot better than what they were. Aaron takes a lot of that blame. I'll have more thoughts as the week goes on, but the NFC playoff games are as followed. 49ers will host the Seahawks. 3rd meeting of the season. 49ers have won the first 2. Minnesota will host the New York Giants. These teams met on Christmas Eve. Minnesota won that game narrowly over the G-Men. Interesting. And on Monday night, Tampa Bay will play the Dallas Cowboys. And these two teams met on opening night with Tampa Bay getting the win. The weekend starts 5:30, 49ers, Seattle on Saturday. 9 o'clock, you got Chargers and Jags. Sunday, 2 o'clock, Bills, Dolphins. 5:30, I believe it's Minnesota, New York. And the 9 o'clock game is, make sure I get all these right, because I don't want to screw that up. The 9 o'clock game is, what is it? Bengals, Ravens. Monday, Tampa, Dallas. Lots more NFL stories this week. Like I said, we'll talk about NFL head coaching vacancies, who's a good fit. If there's more firings, we'll touch on those. But the news right now, and what you should all be watching tonight, is the national championship. Georgia, TCU, the Horned Frogs, Texas Christian, 12.5-point dogs. Georgia looking for their second straight national championship. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think Georgia wins the game, but I have TCU covering the number, just like they did against the Michigan Wolverines. Like I said, I think it's an interesting game tonight, but I do think that Georgia will ultimately win it and close out a pretty great college football season. But lots more stories to talk about this week. We're going to get back into the NHL swing. Lots of thoughts on that. Watched quite a bit of it this weekend. As I mentioned, golf is back. Jon Rahm winning the first tournament back. Colin Morikawa really blowing it. At the Century Tournament of Champions, Jon Rahm shooting 10 under on a Sunday with a pair of eagles. Just a clutch performance from Jon Rahm. We got the Sony Open in Hawaii again starting Thursday. Love these Hawaii tournaments. Also news here, quickly before we wrap up today. The Jets assigned Brad Lambert and Chaz Luchas to their junior clubs. Both were at the World Juniors. I mentioned Brad Lambert had a bad tournament. Chaz Luchas had a hat trick in the bronze medal game. Lambert will now report to the Western Hockey League Seattle Thunderbirds. Seattle is one of the best teams in the WHL. Luchas, the 18th overall pick in the 2021 NHL draft. He had 2 goals and 3 assists in 12 games at the Moose, but he is now a Portland Winterhawk. Don't be shocked if you see him traded from the Portland Winterhawks over the next couple of days. These trades are coming fast and furious because teams are trying to get better on the fly. I'm surprised, the Regina Pats aren't that great of a team. They do have Connor Bedard. He had 6 points. He has not been dealt. He's still there. We saw the Olin Zellweger trade for over 10 pieces. Sorry, over 12 pieces today. These are the type of trades that can happen. Nothing that crazy yet. But right now, if we look at the Portland Winterhawks, they're high in the WHL. Right, they have more points than Kamloops, but Seattle is better. So both these teams, Portland, Seattle, Portland might actually keep Chaz Luchas, but Winnipeg's another really good team, the Winnipeg Ice. They traded for Zach Osachuk from Team Canada this morning from the Vancouver Giants. So lots of stuff happening across the CHL as teams load up for the Memorial Cup, trying to get there and for the playoffs. But as I said, lots happening. National championship game this evening. Get back into more NFL. Seamus will join me tomorrow. We'll touch on a number of different things. So, great to be back. Great to be talking alongside all of you today. Thanks for the interaction. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. This is To The Point.